On the agenda today, BOA case number 2020-1901 has been canceled. So we'll move on to the next case. Case number 2 is BOA case number 2020-1907, a request by applicant in an A2 suburban zoning district for the after-the-fact variance to complete the clear cutting of the portion of the required 50 feet set yard no-cut buffer. The property is located at 59375 Lacombe Harbor, Lacombe, Louisiana. Representative is Ashley Ray. Let me go back. I forgot to get the minutes from our last meeting approved. Most of you got your packet from last month. Were there any corrections or deletions that you needed to make? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting. We had a second. All those in favor? Now you have to raise your hand because our computers are not working right now. So all those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand. Motion passed. BOA case number 2020-1907, request by applicant in an A2 suburban district for the after-the-fact variance to complete the clear cutting of a portion of the required 50 feet side yard no-cut buffer. The property is located at 59375 Lacombe Harbor Road, Lacombe, Louisiana. The applicant is Ashley Ray, which is the representative.
Sorry, hold on just a second.
Ms. Ray, there has been a request to postpone this case until our next meeting.
Okay, why is that?
It's, you want to talk that?
Is this my phone? Helen? There's been a request by the opposition. So Chairman, I don't know if you want to hear the request from the opposition to postpone first, and then the board can decide if they want to make a motion and a second to postpone, in which case the members of the public will be entitled to speak as to whether the case should be postponed or not. Or if you would prefer, you can go on with the regular hearing, and then after each side has had their time, the board can then make the motion to postpone. You may want to ask the opposition to come up and explain, just so Ms. Ray understands, and then the board at that point can decide whether
Okay.
they want to entertain a motion to postpone or whether they want to move forward.
Let's keep the to 5 minutes. The opposition could take 5 minutes to kind of explain their position.
Okay.
We'll
You want
get
me
back
to
to you.
Wait a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Adjustment. My name is Tony Lamont, and I represent the Lacombe Harbor Landowners Association, which is vehemently opposed to this variance being granted. I provided yesterday to Ms. Lambert a letter that was to go, as I understand it, to each of you board members that spelled out the reasons for which we were seeking a postponement of this particular matter to be reset to the October meeting date. Basically, there are several bases that we are seeking to get this matter postponed. One is that we have made a public record request under Louisiana law to the Board of Adjustment through the District Attorney's Office to get certain records relative to this application. and those records have yet to be provided to us. I have provided as attachments to my letter, which I'm going to ask be put into the public record in this matter, the letter that's dated August 31st, 2010 from my office, that we had made this request timely and have not been provided the records in compliance with the Public Records Act. And in fact, Ms. Deborah Hinton, an assistant district attorney, actually emailed me shortly before this meeting to let me know that there had been an oversight by her office in sending us a letter on the 26th of August that never was sent to me by email. And I have that email from Ms. Hinton explaining that fact. For our subdivision to be able to make a fully intelligent and complete argument against this particular variance would require that we try to get the totality of those records that are the subject of that public record request, which is attached as an exhibit to that letter. We are clearly entitled under the Constitution to be able to make oral argument as members of the public in opposition, and to have an opportunity to do that intelligently, and having those records would let us do this more intelligently. We are also pointing out that Ms. Ray is seeking a variance to cut additional trees on her property within a designated buffer zone to secure forgiveness of the prior cutting of trees in that buffer zone. And given that the trees have already been cut in the area where she's already began construction and she's already laid down the foundation of her residence, which is the basis upon which she has been seeking this buffer, the cutting of the buffer zone. It's clear that postponing this meeting will not in any way hinder her ability to continue the construction of her residence. So there's no great injustice or prejudice to her by letting this continue on to October the 6th. I would also point out that in the cutting of trees that has taken place, that it appears that there have been trees cut in wetlands that are under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps. And the Army Corps has yet to conclude their investigation to fully determine the jurisdiction that they have in this matter, for that matter. I've spoken with them. And therefore, it's premature to really make a ruling right now when there may be areas that are designated wetlands and areas of which are not. And until they've concluded their investigation, to allow cutting of trees that potentially would be in wetlands would be before the investigation and the findings of the Corps of Engineers. I would also point out to the board members that Ms. Ray is claiming that what she wants now is the front of her house is going to be an area that would be facing Lacombe Harbor Road, where she's trying to now put a driveway into the property, which would mean she'd have to cut trees through wetlands, by the way, and cut trees to get a driveway placed that would become the front entrance to her property. If the Army Corps does not allow for the cutting of trees on wetlands, then it would be premature to even make a ruling at this time. We're willing to where this driveway is to be placed, and she's provided drawings of where she wants to put that driveway and where she wants to carve trees out to make that her front entrance. And whether that's her front entrance or not may be important for the purposes of whatever variance, if any, you'll grant her in this matter. If this cannot be her front entrance to her property, then it would be premature to make that ruling. I would also point out that there's a strip of land between Lake Harbor Road and her boundary line of her property where we believe, from at least our preliminary research, that is private property that is conceivably owned by the subdivision. So to be able to put a driveway on private property would not be allowed. It would only be allowed if this was parish property. So there again is a prematurity until the title is determined. So that's basically my points. Thank you.
Ms. Ray?
Well, I kind of feel like whatever they wanted to do, they had plenty enough time to do it at this point. Even though I have started construction, to me, that doesn't really matter. We've already been into this for a total of 3 months now, working on 4. So whatever they want to question or want to get a public records request for, they had plenty enough time to do it. So I'm not really sure as that. As far as the wetlands issue, we keep going back into investigation. The Corps is always going to tell anybody that they're doing an investigation, but this is strictly for the driveway. I am putting in a driveway, and I will have to go through them to probably replant trees, so that's what this is for. But it's not, I mean, that's the driveway. We had already submitted a drawing into the parish for this. The Corps has been well aware of this driveway for months now, so this isn't something that's just all of a sudden claiming. This has been. And I don't know if this is just something that's part of their argument to try and push it back, but I feel like whatever they wanted to do, they had plenty enough time to do it by now. I don't feel like there should be any additional time added to anybody at this point. I mean, I don't. You know, I mean, as far as wetlands, I deal with the Corps on that. That's been said. So I'm not really sure, you know, I mean, it was a great speech, but I'm just not really sure what they want.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Ms. Ray, you are under construction with your residence.
Yes.
Okay. Did you get a wetlands delineation from any type of third-party engineer, wetlands engineer,
I have
or
a
environmental engineer before starting?
Yes, I have a preliminary wetlands determination, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know if it shows the driveway in wetlands?
Yes, it does. And that's why the Corps is involved.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the status of your situation with the Corps?
Right now, the status is we're holding off on the driveway for right now. Am I done? I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
That's just a timer going off.
Gotcha. As of right now, we put in the drawing on them. The driveway is going under review. We are under 1/10 of an acre for it, so we should be fine. But the drawing has to go through a review party. I'm saying a review party because I don't know how, whoever gets it. They determine that it's good, so we don't have to mitigate. But we still may have to replant some trees. So all that is still going through the proper channels. And then I also have, it's not just the driveway that they're looking at, but they're also looking at the deck that we're trying to put in on the back side of the bank on our property as well. So they're looking at quite a few things right now.
Do you have a date that you anticipate getting an answer from the Corps?
Hopefully soon. I mean, because that's been in works. I mean, I know they're like backlogged on a lot, but that's basically what the wetlands is just determining now, is just the driveway, get approval, go through them, get the proper permit, and, you know, everything else.
In your request, it says after the fact variance to complete the clear cutting of a portion of the required 50-foot setback. Just want to be clear, are you asking to cut additional trees?
No, honestly, we're not, like, what's already cut is pretty much cut. We do have like some trees that are dead that we do need to get out of there. I mean, and I showed pictures before, I took more pictures this time. They're dead and they have just like split off, and that's what we're trying to eliminate on our property now. I mean, we just don't want that around the property or our home, and then we're facing a tree situation. But so really what's cut now is pretty much cut. There's no additional, and I heard him say that as well. That's incorrect. There's nothing additional. So we do have somewhat of a zigzag. I think there's like certain areas of the other side that does have the buffer that's more than 50. It's like a little zigzag. We do kind of want to just fix that to make it look like a fine line, to, you know, the way it doesn't look like one part's 60, next part's 75.
Yep.
But that's it.
If I'm reading this correctly, your variance says request an after the fact variance to complete the clear cutting of a portion of the required 50-foot side yard, no-cut buffers. That seems a bit in conflict. We have an after the fact, and then you're asking to complete. That's why I'm questioning.
Yeah, I mean, really, for the most part, it's pretty much completed. So I mean, this is, I mean, what you pretty much see on my property is what is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you just stated that you may need to clear more trees because you want to have like a straight line buffer?
It's just cleaning up the property. That's all it is.
Could you please explain what cleaning up, does it mean removing more trees or just the dead trees?
So on the buffer side that the neighbors are on, I don't know if you've ever been out there, but it's like a huge zigzag. It's this. So it's basically just cleaning up just a couple of points of that area, just to kind of get it where it's not.
Which means you'll clear more trees.
Right, but it still would be, it's not clearing any more of the 50-foot buffer. Like, I'm still well within my buffer.
You'll
but-
be outside of the 50.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Like, nothing will affect anything on the 50-foot buffer.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Lamont.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lamont, when did you submit that request for information?
On the 21st of August, and under the Public Records Act, it would be required to be provided within 5 days. So they actually issued a letter on the 26th to let me know that I could inspect the documents, but the letter never came to me. They by inadvertence, by their own inadvertence, and admittedly, did not get it to me until this morning.
I would just remind you that I think we had some days off last week due
Yes,
to
sir.
both of the storms, so
Yes,
that's, I'm sure, played into
I'm sure it did, Your Honor.
inability to get
Yes,
you your
sir.
documents according to the
Yes, sir.
laws. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions that you all have relating to opposition?
I guess I do. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Was that request related to the buffer question, or was that on a different topic?
The request for a postponement?
Well, the request to the parish for more information.
It's basically to get the entirety of the records relating to this application and to, any sort of documents or notes that may be relevant to the review that's taken place so far in this
Okay.
matter.
And presumably the staff, then what informed the staff recommendation?
What was that, please?
Presumably to hear what informed the staff recommendation?
Correct. And I would point out, just briefly in rebuttal since we're the ones moving for the postponement, that it's not simply a matter of the driveway relating to the Army Corps. The Army Corps is looking at the trees that were cut on wetlands for purposes of fining Ms. Ray for violating the laws relating to cutting on wetlands properties. But the driveway, which may or may not be allowed, and it may or may not be on private property, which would certainly not be allowed, to allow cutting of trees, a path from Lake Harbor Road to her house without even the permit for a driveway at this point, and maybe never being able to even get it, would be certainly premature at this juncture. And one last thing, she's not just saying that she's not going to touch the 50-foot buffer. She's made an application to cut back the buffer to between 10 and 15 feet in the entirety of the property, I guess to the exclusion of wetlands. And so to say that now is she changing her application now, or is she actually saying that she's not going to touch the 50-foot buffer? So that's what I wanted to just get clarification. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Got about three minutes, Ashley.
Okay, so as far as fining and violation, I can tell you now, the Corps doesn't repeat anything like that. I have been in contact with the Corps for over 2 years since I've been looking for property, and a guy named by Jeffrey Linville, who is the guy over this, you can call and ask for him. I will give you his number. I did last time. This has nothing to do with fines, so I don't know where these stories constantly come up with. It amazes me, but that's not accurate. And as far as cutting back, pretty much what is cut. We were pretty much done before all this even took place. So I'm just, and then, I mean, my physical address before we even bought the property was 59375 Lacombe Harbor Road. So why would I not want my driveway to be off my physical property address? So it just seems like I'm not really sure what we're hunting and fishing for here, but it just, it's what is on my application is what is on my application. We're doing something very simple, and it's just building a house. That now the tree survey, what we were asked to do, I don't know, we got that, and that's been, I have copies, I don't know if everybody got the copy, but we did get the tree survey, and the tree survey does determine there are plenty of buffers on the neighbor side, and where exactly I cleared on the other side. So, yes.
Mr. Chair. So thanks for the tree survey, because it definitely has helped. But it
Yes.
does verify to us that you have cleared significantly, approximately 900 feet of the 50-foot buffer. So I think at the previous meeting, we were trying to understand the depth of which you had cleared into the buffer. From what I can see on the tree survey, it verifies or clarifies what
Yes.
questions we had as a board.
Yes.
At least on my board. So I appreciate you giving that.
No problem. And it still shows what I was saying last meeting, that on the neighbor side, there is the buffer, and then a portion on the other side is what I had cleared all the way. And where my house is, and I have pictures of where the buffer line goes, if I would have kept that buffer on the other side, I mean, half my home would be in woods. I mean, I would be building a tree house, I mean, at that point. Because that's how far over the buffer would have went if I would have kept them, and then I had to put my home. So half of my home would have went in the buffers.
Any other questions? or-
I do in a minute.
I don't have any questions at this point. I was going to make a motion, but I'll defer.
Oh, I just have, yeah, and I just want to clarify with board and staff about that this is a pretty narrow, what we're being asked just for this specific variance is pretty narrow, and that maybe some of these other issues that were brought up aren't necessarily germane to this. And it may be brought back if there's something beyond the buffer issue. I mean, is that broadly the characterization, that this is a very specific motion likely, and that if there are issues with driveways or the site itself, that would be a separate, brought back separately?
I'm not real sure.
I think that's a question for Helen.
Well, the request here in front of us was originally to, it's an after the fact variance request, but also it was originally requested to clear more trees. However, as Mrs. Ray stated, she's no longer asking to clear more trees, but now according to the tree survey that was provided, there's a side that was, clear cut almost to the property line. And if you look at the staff report, now it's to determine is if the board wants to approve and leave it as is, or if replanting is required. And if the board move forward with requesting a replanting plan, well, this is gonna have to be provided, and there will need to be some time limit to complete the replanting.
Right, okay. That's how I read it. Is essentially the motion would be to, as recommended, would be require on the southern side and probably a little bit on the northern side, replanting of a buffer, but it would be within the 50 feet required because it's a narrow lot, so.
Can I say something? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, considering all circumstances, I would make a motion to postpone until our October meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor to postpone until our next meeting. We have a second. All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand.
All in favor?
And can I ask it what we're postponing, like exactly? Anything from me or like?
Well,
what-
no, I just think we need to get all the information. There's some information about the driveway that we wasn't aware of, and some other issues that I hear. So, and to give your opponent an opportunity to come back and really kind of look at what's going on over there and get a good feel as to what we need to do to approve or disapprove this this motion. So we will hear this the rest of the case on in October.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next case, BOA case number 2020-911, request by applicant in an A-1 suburban district and rural overlay for a waiver of a portion of the required rear yard 50-foot no-cut buffer to allow for the digging of, digging of a pond. The property is located at 16030 Burrow Road, Folsom, Louisiana. Applicant and representative is Nera and Beth Cannon. Give me a second. The applicant is requesting a waiver of a portion of the required rear yard 50-foot no-cut buffer to allow for the digging of a pond. Staff comments, please.
The request to reduce the rear yard no-cut buffer would allow for a portion of the land to be used to dig a pond and to improve the drainage of the site. Staff does not have any objection to the request, as the borings conducted by the Department of Agriculture demonstrate that the proposed location of the pond will be better suited for holding water. Note that the proposed pond is subject to all other pond permits requirement, and a request for waiver of the 50-foot setback along the western side of the waterway will have to be submitted to the Department of Development Engineering Division.
Do we have a representative? Would you state your name and
My name is Beth Cannon,
address?
720 Glockner Lane in Covington.
You have anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve, subject to being submitted to the Department of Development.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve. We have a second. All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand, please.
Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our next case is BOA case number 2020-1938. Request by applicant in an A-4. Oh, this particular case was canceled. So we'll move on to the next case. This is case number 2020-1938, request by applicant in an A-3 suburban district to reduce the required front yard from 30 feet to 20 feet and to reduce the rear yard setback from 25 to 24 feet to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. The property is located east side of Holly Street, Mandeville, Louisiana. Applicant and representative is Adrian Muselli? Okay. I don't want to murder your name there. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 to 24 feet and to 23.8 feet. Staff comments?
The applicant is requesting to reduce the required front yard setback from 30 feet to 20 feet and to reduce the rear yard setback from 25 feet to 24 feet. The requests are to reduce the staff is not in favor of the requested variances, considering that no hardship have been demonstrated. The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence, and although the property is only 116 feet in depth, meeting the setback requirements will not prevent the construction of a single-family residence.
Do we have a representative?
All right, I'm doing. I'm
Do you
Adrian
have-
Maselli.
Do you have, give me your name and your address, please.
It's Adrian Maselli, 816 Greenwood, New Orleans, Louisiana, 7124.
Do you have anything to add to the staff report?
So y'all are declining it?
This is the staff recommendation. However, the board still has to vote on it.
Okay. I mean, I'm not asking for anything different than anybody else has on the street. Some of the properties on that street, on my side, have less than 20 feet setback from the street to the house. And from north to south, the way the plans have it drawn out right now, I have plenty of space between the left of the property and to the right of the property, which is the lakeside.
Any questions?
Chairman, I have a question for staff. I'm not sure if he needs a rear setback variance because his lot is 116 feet in depth, and 20% of that would be 23.2.
Actually, that would not apply to him because it meets the minimum lot width and the minimum lot size.
Okay.
So the full 25 feet applies.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question for the applicant. You said you didn't get any letters from the adjacent neighbors.
I do.
Okay, I just didn't have any, in fact, I have something that says I didn't get any, so you do have some.
Are you part of a homeowners association?
We are not. We're outside of Vanderbilt. I mean, the lot is outside of Vanderbilt.
You got it?
Question for staff again. Do you know if we have other neighboring properties that we granted variances for, or in fact at 20 feet?
If you look at the aerial, there are some that are not, that are less than 25 feet. As far as on Holly Street, I'm not aware that the board has granted any other variances on that particular street.
But we know there are some that already
Right.
are within. Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
you stated that this doesn't meet the requirements or the threshold of a hardship. Does the parish allow for any sort of exception process?
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
That's why we're here.
can you hear me now? This is a staff question. Does the parish allow for an exception process? I realize what you're saying is it does not meet the threshold for a variance or hardship. Is there an exception process in place in the parish to allow for, in the argument being that every house or pretty much every house has less than a 20-foot or 30-foot
That's
setback?
basically the reason why the gentleman is here in front of the
Right.
board to make that request.
Right, no, I understand that, but has it been, in the past, has that been sort of policy, if it meets more or less what the makeup the neighborhood is in terms of setbacks? In other words, if everyone's on a 20-foot or 25-foot setback, is it unreasonable to say, we're going to hold you to the 30-foot setback?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Helen, I think I may be able to help out a little bit because this is more of a legal question. Of course, that your standard is hardship, which is not purely economical.
Right.
The staff, of course, is not enabled to make any variances at all. And while you should consider that hardship, whether or not there's a hardship, there are certainly different factors you can consider, and seeing a pattern is one of those factors. Ultimately, it
Right.
is up to you to decide whether this is appropriate for the neighborhood, whether you think it's a hardship or whether you think that it meets the spirit of the ordinance.
Okay.
So in addition to just looking at whether there's a hardship, you can also consider, does this meet the spirit of the ordinance and the spirit of the code?
Okay, thank you for that.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move to approve the variance.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the variance. We have a second. What's that?
It's been moved and seconded.
Just before you vote, make sure you ask for opposition.
I'm a neighbor on the north, and I'm not here to oppose it or approve it, but my question is, do we know how it will affect the drainage? We're in a very poorly drained area. If it doesn't affect it in a negative way, I have no issue. If it affects it in a negative way, I think the property owners would have an issue.
Now, would you state your name,
Kevin Edwards?
address there? Kevin Edwards?
Yep.
Now, you're a neighbor?
Uh-huh. And so, like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but there's been no drainage thing that I've seen. So if we move it up, does it get into the problem with the ditches and any flooding? If it doesn't, I don't really have an issue, but if it does, I would have an issue because I'm one yard back. And if we affect the natural flow of the water, when it comes in and goes out, okay, then I'd have an issue. If there's no issue there, I'm not worried about it.
I'm not aware that it will cause an issue. The owner that the variance is granted or not will be held to the parish drainage requirements
Okay.
either way.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, there's a motion on the floor.
Correct.
But if we need to discuss this, I will withdraw my motion to discuss this.
Okay,
But there's a motion on the floor.
Correct.
so we need to,
You did have to allow for, the reason that discussion continued is because other audience members did have to speak. But if the board wants to continue, you certainly can withdraw your motion, and the board can discuss some more, and then you can place it back on the floor when you're ready.
I withdraw my motion.
okay.
Well, I just think somebody needs to make sure that's not going to be a problem, and if it's no problem with that, it's no problem with me.
And Helen, what did you say? You was making a comment?
That the variance is granted or not granted, the owner will be held to the same standards as far as drainage requirements. And, after, he's going to have to submit all the required plans. If there's a particular issue after construction starts, then anyone is welcome to file a complaint or inquire.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the gentleman.
Sure.
Where are you located in reference to the property?
One property north. I sit on 1.8 acres north of the property you're talking about.
Do you happen to know what your front setback is?
We're on 1.8 acres. We're way more than 20 feet. And I think my neighbor on the other north side is way more than 20 feet too.
Okay.
I don't know all the properties.
So his property-
We're on 1.8 acres, so we've got a big piece of land there.
I think that from your fence to the side of your house, you're not more than 30 feet.
Well, I don't know. I haven't measured it, but I've only bought it a year ago. And it's a pretty big piece of land.
Now, your yard to my yard is over 100 feet. From your back door to my yard is over 100 feet.
Oh, I'd say so. I'd
I mean, it's
say
gotta be at least over 100.
I don't know what our setback is from the front, but I don't know. I would think it's over 20. I'm not sure. I've never measured it, but you could surely take a stick and measure it. And like I said, the setback doesn't bother me. If we cause for drainage problems, it would bother me.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question for staff. Would it be appropriate for engineering, particularly drainage, to take a look at this situation? And I would make that as part of my motion to approve, subject to engineering review.
Well, the plans, once the application is submitted for the building permit, it will definitely be reviewed, and all the required permits will have to be submitted. They will have to look at the fact that a variance was granted in the event that it is granted. And, the proper plans will have to be submitted to meet all parish drainage ordinance.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve, subject to engineering review of the drainage.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the variance and have engineering do some type of study. We have also have a second for this motion.
Who seconded it?
We have a staff question.
I don't know if that particular motion is allowed.
Yeah.
It's on review for a variance on a setback.
Right.
At any time he gets his plans together, whether it's in a day or a year, whatever, and they're submitted to our office, we will review them. If they do not meet code, they will not be approved. If they don't meet code, we'll work with his engineer to make sure that, everything is in order. But I just don't think that motion is allowable because it's not part of the variance request. And I don't know if that can be legally mandated for a variance for a drainage study. I could defer to Carla.
Yeah, what is before you is the setback, and as Helen mentioned, this will go through all of the parish requirements. If engineering is required by the code, it will go through engineering. I don't think that it's necessary to add that because it's going to have to go through, this is just one single piece, and it's still going to have to go through a lot of review if this gets approved.
Okay? Mr. Chairman?
Restate your,
Okay, I will amend my motion simply to approve the variance as stated.
And I'll second.
we have a motion on the floor to approve the variance. We have a second. Could we get a vote, please?
All in favor? Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you.
Variance. Oh, we got, what's your name? What part do you play in this?
Ross Liner, Director of Planning and Development.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Just to prove it's been a while.
Yeah.
You got that mask on.
Yes.
Helen?
We're done.
Oh. Our next case is BOA case number 2020-1944, request by applicant in an A-2 suburban zoning district to reduce the required 50-foot side yard no-cut buffer to 10 feet to allow for the placement of a driveway. The property is located at 73273 Kitchen Road, Abita Springs. Applicant and representatives Kevin A. Coulette. I might be mispronouncing your name there, so.
Yes, it's pronounced Caillouette. Sorry.
Yeah. Hold up one second here. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required 50-foot side yard no-cut buffer to 10 feet. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the placement of a driveway outside of the area delineated as wetlands and to avoid crossing the nearby stream or tributary of the Abita River. Staff does not have any objection to the request, considering that hardships have been demonstrated as the location of the proposed driveway will allow for the preservation of the wetlands and also to reduce the flood risk for properties within the watershed.
Representative?
Yes, Kevin Caillouette. Property is 73273 Kustenmacher Road, Abita.
Okay. You have anything to add?
No, sir.
To the comments?
No, sir.
Any questions, concerns?
Ask for opposition, if there's any opposition.
Is there any opposition to this case? Anybody want to speak? Okay.
I move that the variance request for 73273 Kitchener Road be approved by the board.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve this variance. We have a second.
Who made the second, sir?
I did. Sean down here.
Back.
Oh, thank you.
Could we get a vote, please?
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
We kind of a lot of stuff on the back. The applicant is requesting an after-the-fact reduction of the required 25-foot no-cut buffer along Holiday Road and of the required 50-foot side yard no-cut buffer. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the placement of 2 perimeter fence enclosures for horses, as shown on the attached drawing. The proposed replanting consists of live oak trees within the fence enclosure, the pasture area, and also bushes and greenery along the fence to increase privacy. Staff is not in support of the requested variance, considering that no evidence of hardship has been demonstrated to support the reduction of the required no-cut buffer and to allow the complete clearing of the buffers. Also, considering the size of the property, 5 acres, the buffers would not prohibit the construction of an enclosure for horses. If the board considers granting the request, it should be subject to the following: providing a plan showing the location of the proposed live oak trees and shrubs to be planted, provide the species and height of the shrubs to be planted, and provide a timeline to complete the replanting.
Do we have a representative? Want to state your name and your address, please?
Elizabeth LeBlanc, 16171 Hezzy Lloyd Road, Folsom.
You have anything to add to the staff comments, please?
Yes.
We have an approximately 20-acre horse farm that my husband is a professional trainer. We breed and raise horses. This 5 acres was purchased to expand our breeding program. Our horse farm is immaculately maintained. The pastures are kept mowed, and the perimeter fence around our whole property is well landscaped with magnolia trees, live oaks, cypress trees we have around our ponds, and also crepe myrtles. It would be our 4-board fence, and then we would be willing to plant such continuing landscaping around this as well.
Do you agree with the staff 3 comments there?
No, I do not.
And what they're saying is provide a plan showing the location of the proposed live oak trees, provide a timeline to complete species and heights of the shrubbery.
Oh, no, that I do totally agree with. We are willing to
Well,
do that.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yes.
talking about there.
No problem.
Is there a question
Yes.
on the other end?
Oh,
Question
sorry,
related.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Approximately, we didn't get a distance from the fence to the pastures. Do you know approximately that distance? Like, specifically, it's to reduce the 25-foot buffer, but what would that be reduction to?
So the fence typically is set back 1 foot from a property line, is the typical how far we back it up. However, in this case, we would probably have to back it up a little farther because it's not, it is 2 side to our 2 neighbors. We'd have to back it up a little bit more to allow for the landscaping.
And then how far are the pastures from that perimeter fence?
The perimeter fence starts the pasture.
Is the
It is,
beginning.
yes.
Okay,
It
okay, I see.
encloses the animals.
Okay, so there would be presumably a fence between the 2 pastures.
Yes.
Okay.
The 2 pastures would actually have what we call a breezeway in between them.
Okay.
So there would be 2 separate enclosures.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah. Is there any opposition? We have some opposition there. I'll give you five minutes.
Hi. Susan and Scott Roth. We live at 83.
What's your name again?
Susan and Scott Roth, R-O-T-H. We live at 83683 Holiday Road. So we are the neighbors kind of on the right side facing, that would be affected by them clearing the 50-foot buffer. Our opposition basically is, we've lived on our property for a little over 20 years. We moved there for the privacy and the seclusion of that property that it offered to us. Our home itself and our garage, the majority of that part where we live is on the further left side to our property, which is pretty much running where the fence line would be. We're wanting that buffer to be maintained, that 50-foot buffer to be maintained. We felt that basically clearing that whole thing out, and I understand what they're saying, and that they're going to build and add trees and such, but wiping all of that buffer out for us is going to eliminate a lot of the shading that is provided across our home, which would ultimately affect probably our electricity and such. In addition, we do have concerns for possible noise or possible, smelling of manure and such that we're not used to. Those are the things maybe we could get past, but the big thing is the overall appearance of our property, again, with having that enclosed
privacy and that buffer is what we wish to maintain. Do you have to add anything to that? Again, we've lived here for almost 21 years. And we're, just definitely disappointed that we potentially could lose that side, especially because our home is maintained on that far left side where that perimeter fence would go. I actually have pictures too, if need be, to show where that kind of would run in comparison to where our house is at. I don't know if that's necessary or not. Yes. I don't know if I have to explain anything or not, but.
Mr. Chair, can I ask? Oh, can I ask a question? Okay, yeah, thank you. So if Holiday Road, are you on the north or south side of the property? I just have a map here. I was just trying to get an idea of where exactly your property was.
It's the adjacent property, I would say we're the north.
Okay, north, and Holiday Road also is part of, you butt up against Holiday Road as well?
Yeah,
So
our driveway comes
okay.
off of Holiday Road.
Okay.
And it's roughly, it's about 800 and something feet on the side.
Okay,
adjacent
so it's sort of
property.
the long portion of
Yeah,
this
we're
property.
kind of a pie shape.
Okay, okay. Do you have any issues with the buffer along Holiday Road, or is it mostly just the
It's
abutting your
just the
property?
side. Actually, it hasn't been cleared up by the house since we're up on the top left corner. It's still.
But the front buffer that they're requesting, we have no opposition to that. on
Oh, along the
Holiday.
roadway
Yeah,
itself?
just
yeah. Okay.
the one
to the
adjacent on our property,
right.
correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the gentleman. There is a longer side to this property and then a shorter side to this property. You are adjacent to which side?
Along against their pasture that they bought, the 5 acres, is the long side.
The longest side? Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, thank you.
Ms. LeBlanc, you have anything else? You have?
No, just respectfully, we purchased 5 acres, additional 5 acres. And I would ask the neighbors, why can they not plant on their property to help with the buffer? That would be my only comment.
Question, Mr. Chairman, for staff. This is an after the fact. So has the 25-foot buffer along Holiday Road been cleared already?
I don't know if it's been entirely cleared, but some of it has been cleared.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the drawing opposite to their side, and let me also back up and apologize to council, we were not aware that we needed a permit to clear 5 acres, and our contractor that is clearing it is from Washington Parish. So I do apologize that this work was started prematurely. But what has been cleared is the opposite side of them, the frontage, half of the frontage leading into the driveway, and probably a quarter of going to our other neighbor's property.
Has anything been cleared on the Roth side of the property?
No, it has not.
Okay. But the request is to also clear that. Request for variance is also to clear that.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the staff. It states in this that if we approve this variance, that it is predicated upon the 3, to provide where the shrubs are to be planted, the species and height, and a time limit. How, do they come back to us, or do they come to you with those? If we approve the variance, what is the follow-up process? How do we, as the board, if we do that, know that they have met this criteria?
At this time, the board has an option to approving denying or approving the variance, and that the information be provided to us. However, we don't know exactly what will be required to be provided. So at this time, basically, once the information is provided to us, there's no way to deny or approve it. So it may be better for the board to consider postponing and ask the applicant to come back with a replanting plan with the species, the shrubs, and the timeline.
That was my thought. Thank you.
I guess I have a question as well. Could we approve some of the buffers of the variance, or would it would be approving or rejecting the entirety of the request, and then they would have to revise their application?
They would have to reapply.
Yeah, okay.
If you wish to make a motion to only approve the 25-foot and not the 50, the board can do that. I don't think it's necessary that.
Well, I mean, I was thinking more of, the portion along the roadway, but not along the, the neighbors. That would require a resubmission.
You may want to ask the applicant if that's
Right.
something that, I don't know if you want to approve something when the
Correct,
applicant may
right.
rather have the entire thing denied and appeal it. But the
Right,
board
right.
does have the authority to approve part of this and
Okay.
deny another part.
Guess I can ask the applicant. I mean, as far as your preference to return with that, as staff has recommended about the planting plan and potentially, maintaining the buffer on the neighboring side, is that preferential to us taking a vote today?
No, I would like to come back to the council with a planting guide and species.
Okay, great.
I guess I can make a motion to table this till the next meeting,
Right.
based on that. The staff recommended planting plan. Oh,
And would we also be privy to that information?
Yes, it will be available in the packet before the meeting, yes.
Okay. But we wouldn't be
Well-
able to see it prior to?
But prior to the meeting, yes.
Okay.
it should be available the week before.
Post it to the website.
Yes.
Before.
Okay.
I'm good.
Restate your motion.
So is there a motion?
Yes, so, sorry, the motion was to table this until next meeting pending the tree plan being submitted in time to be posted along with the meeting packet for the next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to postpone to our next meeting. Give the person an opportunity to kind of put together a plan and come back to the board.
Can I ask one more question?
Well, we're
No.
going to vote right now. Do we have,
You got a second.
huh?
We had a second.
All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand.
All in favor, motion pass?
It's being postponed to next week, to next meeting. Our next case is BOA case number 2020-1946. Request by applicant in a PUD plan unit development overlay to reduce the required front yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet to allow for the front of the proposed single-family residence to line up with the existing adjacent single-family residence. The property is located at lot 75 and 76 outside of Camp Hill Drive, Money Hill Plantation, Abita Springs, Louisiana. Applicant and representative Money Hill Plantation LLC. It's Mimi Dorset, president. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required front yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet. Staff comments, please.
The objective of the request is to allow for the front of the proposed single-family residence to line up with the existing adjacent single-family residence. Staff is not in support of the requested variance, considering that no evidence or hardship has been demonstrated to warrant the support of the reduction of the front yard setback. Also, the request appears to be more of a preference, and it does not appear that the property has any unique physical characteristic or conditions making it impossible to meet the setback requirements.
Representative, state your name, address, please.
My name is Mimi Dossett, and my address is 74283 Military Road, but Money Hill is 175, 176, lots 175 and 176 at Money Hill. So anyway, do you all have the survey of the property? If I could take a minute to explain that the strange sort of curve at the back of the property is the 6th green of the Money Hill Golf Course. These two particular lots, the main reason I wanted to sell them together is because lot 175 has 0 trees and is actually a former roadbed coming into Money Hill. The other lot is heavily wooded with very beautiful trees, and it's adjacent to a cart path that comes off the golf cart. Both houses on the two lots outside of these two exist already, and the side yard is what faces Camp Hill Drive. So anyway, the reason that I wanted to consolidate the lots is because I didn't want to lose all those trees on one lot, and if I were to sell the treeless lot, which is very unusual at Money Hill on the golf course, there are very few lots without, at least a number of trees, it was going to make me either make the other lot unsellable or have to allow somebody to cut all the trees off. So in consolidating the lots, the center of these two lots, because they're curved, ends up being about 30 feet wide. If I were to request a variance, which is too narrow for the house that people want to build, if I were to request a variance on the rear, pushing the house closer to the golf course, it would obstruct or interfere with the views of the two houses that are already have their homes facing the view of the golf course. I think from a streetscape, it will look the most attractive for this house to line up basically with the one next to it, and then you get a cart path, and then the house on the next side of it is on a diagonal. So as opposed to have a house sitting way back and closer to the golf course, it'll be more of a better alignment from the front, and certainly better alignment from the golf course, which is when most people will see that house. So that's the explanation. I have some pictures too. And again, I have some people that would like to buy the house, and to have a house that's 35 feet wide in the middle with this kind of property, an acre and a half, doesn't seem reasonable. So that's the gist. Any questions? Yeah.
Ms. Dossett, you plan on re-subdividing that into one lot?
Yes.
Okay. And as you stated, in the middle of 176 and 175, you have a depth of only 30 feet.
Right.
Okay. And 175 and 176 are nestled between two corner lots.
Yes,
Those houses are built.
yes.
And according to the survey you provided, at least the setbacks seem to be more in line, if we were to grant the variance to 25 feet, seem to be more in line with those two corner properties.
Right,
So you truly do have an irregular situation here.
yes.
And you're here first for this variance prior to going to re-subdivide, or you've already re-subdivided?
It's completed,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And I just also want to add that these lots were approved by the parish over 20 years ago. This is part of Money Hills Phase 3. So it's, you know, the design has been there for, you know,
Yeah.
a long time.
Mr. Chairman,
Any other
question for staff. If we were to approve this variance at 25 feet, we would be within the development code, 25 feet.
Not of the zoning.
I'm not clear on that.
I'm not clear either. Would you say that again, please?
As far as if there are other parcels of property in the parish that have a 25-foot setback, or
Yes, front setback requirements.
some parcels in the parish or some other zoning require 25 feet.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr.
Mr.
Guidry?
Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Second.
Well, a second.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second to, oh, any opposition? Any opposition to the variance? We have a motion on the floor and the second to approve the variance. And all those in favor, let it be known by raising your hand, please.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Our next case BOA case number 2020-1948, request by applicant in an A-3 suburban zoning district to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 3 feet to allow for the construction of a single-family resident with an attached garage. The property is located north side of Tecumseh Drive, Covington, Louisiana. Applicant is Dr. Robert Hirsch. Representative Dean M. Duplantis.
Duplanche.
Duplanche. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 3 feet. Staff comments, please.
The variance request is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence with an attached garage. Staff is not in support of the requested variance, considering that no hardship has been demonstrated to support the reduction of the side yard setback variance. Moreover, the request appears to be more of a preference, as it does not appear that the property has any physical unique characteristics or conditions making it impossible to meet the setback requirements.
The representative, state the name and your address, please.
My name is Dean Duplanche. I'm the architect on this project. My address is 4040 Florida Street, Suite 202. Just a few comments. I understand staff's findings here, and they've been very helpful throughout this process, but I think there's several things that aren't clear or may not have been clear. First off, Dr. Hurst purchased this property in 1996, and at the time it was zoned like commercial. It's directly adjacent and shares a property line with his orthodontic office, which fronts on the frontage road at the corner of Chifuncta Drive and the west side of the frontage road. Currently, the property is zoned A3 with setbacks of 10 feet on the two side property lines. This request would allow for the variance on the east property line, which is the property line that's common with his current doctor's office, so that the residential portion of the building would be closer to the office. And primarily, the orientation of the building on the site, I believe as the architect, is much more palatable to, it's a better use of the property and much less intrusive to any of the two adjacent neighbors. In the end, the height of the building at the residence side, considering the slope of the roof, is 27 feet, which would require an additional 7 feet in the side yard setback. And so our request for a variance of 7 feet would in effect wound up with the home being constructed meeting the standard minimum 10-foot setback on the east property line, while the west property line would still be the 17 feet. The home itself uses less than 20% of the surface area of the lot. I think if you have an opportunity to look at my submission, the site planning is a better use of the available land and certainly makes the building, the new home, more accessible to his directly adjacent office building. Dr. Hurst has talked to the directly adjacent neighbor who didn't express any concerns on the western side property line. On that side, the new home would be 17 feet from the property line. So we had a request, basically a 7-foot variance, which would, in the end, result in the home being built 10 feet from the eastern property line, and it's a property line common with his office building that he constructed back in 1983. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to address them, but if you have a chance to look at the site planning submission, I would hope you would agree that this is less intrusive on the adjacent landowners and a better use in the end of the available property. I'm glad to address any questions.
Dean, I was looking at your drawing here. Now, you keep saying 7 foot, but it looked like this, a part of that building really is like 3 feet, right?
Yes, and since we made this application 2 months ago now, since then, I've actually reduced the size of the building and consolidated it so that the current footprint of the building, when, if allowed, would be within the 10-foot setback on the on the eastern side of the property.
So what's on the other side of this, on the right side of the drawing here?
On the right-hand side is Dr. Hurst's existing dental office.
Okay.
He's an orthodontist. And it's you'll see that the patient parking area is common to this property line.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question for the representative, help me understand, you reduced the footprint of the building since this was submitted, this is what's in my package.
Yes.
And it shows 3 feet.
I've adjusted the layout
Okay.
to make sure that we can get the building within the allowable limits of the setback and account for the 7 feet. The additional 7 feet that I'm required because of the height of the building.
Right.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I'm gonna tell you guys, I was not, when I made this application, I wasn't aware of the additional 7 feet. The way the ordinance is written, I'm limited to 20 feet in height or an additional 1 foot in setback for every additional 1 foot in height above 20 feet. So the intended height of the home is 26 feet, 6 inches, actually, at the midspan of between the ridge and the eave. So that's why I adjusted the design.
Is the intent of that basically runoff, so I understand this, the reasoning that we're going to increase the side yard setback is because of the pitch of the roof and the runoff from the roof?
There's another provision in the ordinance that requires me to increase the setback.
Because?
Yes.
Because, okay. Just trying to understand the intent of the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm sorry, does that mean that the applicant is actually requesting a reduction from 17 feet to 10 feet for the setback? Is that?
The way I wrote my request is I'm asking for a variance in 7 feet of what's required.
Of whatever is required.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get an interpretation from legal here. The original request was to reduce from 10 to 3, and according to what Mr. Duplanche is saying here is, when we discussed, we did not talk about the height of the building, so we looked further in the ordinance. So now the request is to reduce from 17 to 10. So does it affect the advertisement of the request?
Based on the intended design that's matured since this application,
Yeah.
the idea is still I'm only asking for a 7-foot variance.
So it's no longer 3 foot, it's the 7 foot, you changed the.
Well, the request was for 7 feet, with the resultant being a 3-foot remainder on the eastern side. I'm still asking for a 7-foot variance, but the effective result will be when I make my final application for a building permit, that on the eastern side I will wind up with 10 feet. Because I would have gotten a 7-foot variance, but I would have, if I hadn't requested a variance because of the height of the building, I would have been required to be 17 feet. Actually, 17 feet on both east and west side.
So the request is for a variance of 7 feet, but when he made the request, it was for a variance from 10 feet to 3 feet.
Right.
So still a variance of 7 feet. Now it's a request from 17 to 10 feet, but it's still 7 feet. Is there anyone in opposition? That may affect my opinion.
Well, the adjacent landowner is the applicant, so.
Yeah.
For now.
Our legal standard, okay, so when we have to re-advertise, is the request for more or less than what was originally requested. This is essentially the same as what is requested. If you wanted to err on the absolute side of caution, you could postpone it to re-advertise it. But he is still requesting 7 feet, and he is actually going to be further from his own property line than he would have been. So I think you're probably okay in this case. I can't tell you with 100% certainty that it would not be challenged legally, and if you wanted to be completely on the side of caution, you would postpone it. But I think the effect is he's still requesting 7 feet.
I mean, if my opinion means anything in this room, I agree with Carlin. Seems reasonable.
I mean, we would obviously prefer not to delay it another month, and so, the effect of maintaining my application as was versus how I'm intending to submit the final design, it's the same.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair, okay.
considering that his request is still for 7 feet, and he is further from the property line, the adjacent property line, than he was before, I would move that we grant this variance as requested.
Well, I think we need to go back to him with changing this variance, because the way it reads right now is not what he's asking for, right?
So a motion needs to be made, I guess, with that consideration, with the changes that we've discussed at this meeting. So your
But
motion needs to
as
reflect
long
that.
as he's willing to come out and change his proposal, then fine.
And you can do
Mis-
that.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible, though, for us to approve the variance as stated with the discussion we had today, because it's still 7 feet? And if, I think that if we say that we postpone for him to come back next time,
No, I'm not asking him to come back. All I'm asking him.
you just want us to change the
For
motion?
him to change the motion from
Okay.
10 feet to 3 feet. I mean, now it should be 10 to 7 feet, I believe.
Yeah, and I believe you are correct. I would suggest that you resubmit this in writing, even though I think the board is fine to vote on it, because it is a variance. I would suggest that you just send a letter in saying that your request is for, from 17 to 10, rather than the original application.
But I would have to reappear and withhold making my application for a permit.
We can approve that, right?
You can, I think you can approve it right now. Just send an email or something so that it is in writing.
So make a motion.
I will restate my motion.
Okay.
Approve the variance for 7 feet, subject to the applicant sending in written document indicating his
Confirmation
intent
of the height and the
to that
location on the
7
property.
feet. Can we parse that into something that makes sense? Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Got it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the variance from 10 feet 3 to 7 feet upon receiving some information from the defendant. Guilty.
You guys are getting tough.
Really?
The necessary document. All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand.
All in favor?
Motion passed.
Thank you for your time this
All right.
afternoon.
Moving on.
Helen, you should recall the roll for our new meeting.
Can we pause for one?
Okay.
Do we get a halftime?
This is our
I think, do we
September 1st.
formally need to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should adjourn this meeting and then do the roll and start our next meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
We have a second over there.
We have a motion second to adjourn. All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by raising your hand.
All in favor? Motion carries.
September